thing's not working. Nope. Let's see. Okay. Carrie, ready? Bill, Alan. Bill.
Make sure I turn my cell.
Okay. That's what I do. Make sure mine's all to you. Right, I have 7 o'clock. Call to order the meeting here at 600 West Cleveland Boulevard, City of Aransas Pass, City Council, May 16, 2016 at 7 p.m. Please rise for invocation. So Lord, we'd like to give you thanks for this beautiful day. Even though with the circumstances as they come to our community, we ask you to bless our citizens, to look over them, watch over them, and their time of needs, the ones that are having trouble with the floods and the waters. Of course, we'd like you to bless everybody, including especially our workers that are working hard extra hours right now to make things right. We ask you, through the guidance of your hand and the kindness of your heart, that you watch over Aransas Pass and bless us all. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is going to bring us item 3A, consider an act on the resolution 2016-799, 779.
I'm sorry, Mayor, before that, there is a disaster declaration that we'd like you to declare.
Okay. Do you have it under here, Sylvia?
Yes, it should be in your,
Okay, I see it. Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Let me just read this off real quick. Agenda, emergency posting. Regular meeting here, the City Council here, City of Aransas Pass, City Hall, 600 West Cleveland Boulevard, May 16, 7 p.m. The following items being added to the council agenda due to the reasonably unforeseeable situation and immediate threat to the public health and safety caused by widespread and severe damage resulting in flooding. Agenda item, declaration of a state of disaster in the City of Aransas Pass. With this posting statement, I certify the above notice of meeting posted here at Aransas Pass City Hall located 600 West Cleveland Boulevard on May 16, 2016 at 1:30 p.m. by Ms. Mary Juarez, our City Secretary. The declaration of state of disaster states, whereas the City of Aransas Pass on the 16th day of 2016 has suffered widespread and severe damage to the property resulting in flooding, and whereas Mayor of the City of Aransas Pass has determined that the extraordinary measures must be taken to prevent and alleviate the suffering, I can't say that word. Help me out. Alleviate. You have to, excuse me, get tongue-tied sometimes. The suffering of the people and to protect, rehabilitate property, and now therefore be it proclaimed that by the Mayor of the City of the Aransas Pass, 1, the state of disaster is declared for the City of Aransas Pass. Number 2, that the City Emergency Management Plan has been implemented. Number 3, that this state of disaster shall continue for a period of not more than 7 days of the date of hereof, unless the same is continued by consist of the city council, by the council of the city of Rents Pass, Texas. That number 4, that this proclamation shall take effect immediately from and thereafter its issuance. Ordered this day, the 16th of May, 2016, by myself, the Mayor of Rents Pass, Arlan Chapa.
Mayor, what you have up on the screen are, we have aerial photographs. There's over 130 photos of some of the areas that were more heavily damaged this morning. This is probably the clearest shot of what you'll see that damage looks like. We had anywhere from 12 to 15 inches of rain, depending on where your rain gauge was. That coinciding with the tides, coinciding with the pumps just not being able to keep up, the ditches already full, created just the perfect storm. Obviously, those you're not supposed to see water in a lot of those areas. We had over 300 homes affected, specifically in the area of the Euclid Ditch behind Arch. As we clean our ditches and things upstream, the water velocities reach the ditches much faster. Commercial Street was underwater. TxDOT obviously has some work to do on its boxes as well in order to move water. We did start our emergency operations center at 4 a.m. this morning. First responders were out at that time rescuing people from their homes, especially around this area. We did set up City Hall as a shelter, a refuge shelter. We are in the process of setting up the Civic Center as a shelter of last resort. At this point, we have over 30 families who are displaced, who have nowhere to go. The Red Cross has come in and determined that there is a need in Aransas Pass. They will man the shelter. We will still be looking for volunteers. It is going to be a tax on city resources as well. We are to provide security. All of the staffers will take turns manning the facility as well. We can man that facility through Friday. That's the extent of what we can do. So we are trying to work with the school district. Unfortunately, the school district has probably not been as responsive as we would like. There are several issues that will need to be addressed post-event because this kind of situation cannot happen during a hurricane event. It did shed to light some of our very own weaknesses, specifically communications and pushing out media communications as fast as we could. Despite working since 4 a.m., and many of our staffers, Eric included, have not gone home today, and we will continue to work through night's end and continue our shift work. The rain is not expected to let up until the end of the week. So all I can say is we've called in every available pump and every available staffer and called in every available resource from surrounding towns. Everybody's in the same situation. Our main concern right now is our sewer treatment plant. It is at capacity. I would like to tell you that we're not going to have a breach and we will not have any sewage spilled. Today we did not have any sewage spilled, and that was really the result of Robert Price's 20+ years of experience treating, shocking, sending what we could downstream before needing to release anything. There is less than a foot of freeboard available in space at the sewer treatment plant, so we're doing what we can to shock it and send things downstream that need to be sent downstream to Reynolds and some of the other plants. The rest remains to Mother Nature. And from the staffing perspective, I think we have done what we could today, given the resources and the infrastructure that we have. There were over 10 areas of road cave-ins, and there will probably be more that show up tomorrow. We've seen areas where there's already water bubbling from under the roadway, which means base failure. Republic lost a truck in the area of Matlock, and you know, unfortunately, people get crazy and are still trying to drive those areas. And we have areas of just plain washout, where the velocity of the water and the amount of water just took sections of roadway away. We did update all of our plans. Today we submitted what we needed to submit to the state, to FEMA, and we will be submitting to the county judges as well. We will need cooperation from our county judges. It appears Ingleside and Aransas Pass were hit the worst. So we'll be reaching out to all 3 of our county judges in order to get the needed assistance. That's what we have today. Wish it was better news. Yeah, Eric, infrastructure estimates, just a roundabout figure of what we were able to do in terms of what we call a windshield survey, in excess of $2 million.
Mary. live stream's getting it. All right. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Now we can move on to item 3A.
Item 3A is consider an act resolution number 2016-779 canvassing and declaring the results of the general election held on May 7, 2016 in the city of Aransas Pass, Texas, for the purpose of electing council members to places 2 and 4 and to 2 charter amendments. And then we're going to have item 3B, which is conduct the swearing in of the duly elected officials, city council officials, members. And item 3C will be consider an act and appoint a mayor pro tem for the ensuing year. Do I hear a motion for item 3A for approval?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2016-779.
Second the motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 3B.
Becky, if you and Billy will step down here, please. Raise your right hand. I, Vicky Bradley. Billy Ellis. Do solemnly swear. That I will faithfully execute. The duties of the office. Of council member. Of the city of Aransas, state of Texas. Will to the best of my ability. Preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution and laws. Of the United States. And of this state. And the charter. And ordinances. Of this city. I furthermore solemnly swear. That I have not directly. Nor indirectly. Paid. Offered. Or promised to pay. Contributed. Or promised. Any public office. Or employment. As a reward. For the giving. Or withholding. A vote. The election. Which I was elected. So help me God. Congratulations.
This will bring us on to item 3C, consider an act and appoint a mayor pro tem for the ensuing year.
Well, I make a motion that we appoint Billy Ellis for the mayor pro tem for this year.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Congratulations, Mr. Ellis.
So item 4A, we have somebody.
Yes,
come in.
we have, Mayor and Council, as you're aware, we partner with the Texas A&M University Corpus Christi MPA students. They've done an assessment of our swimming pool, of our library, of some of our other programs. The program evaluation class this year focused on the Aransas Pass Senior Center. And I have Mr. John Hornsby, who will be presenting the findings of the evaluation on behalf of the class.
Thank you, Ms. Britt. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hornsby. I'm a recent graduate of the Masters of Public Administration program at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi.
Go Islanders.
Sorry. Part of our program requirements are a class called Program Evaluation. Ms. Carrillo was kind enough to invite us to evaluate the senior center this year and give us unprecedented access to both the operation and the clients of the senior center to determine the efficiency, the effectiveness, as well as the client satisfaction of the participants in the senior center program. A little bit of background about the senior center. Most of you, I'm sure, are very aware of it. In 1973, and November 5th, actually, the senior center was formed as a cooperative venture between the Housing Authority and the City of Aransas Pass. It's located on 13th Street with two buildings, the McSwain Building as well as the Community Center Building. It's run by the Community Enrichment Division of the city, and currently has one part-time employee that is supplemented considerably by volunteers, as well as the lunch program that is Monday through Friday from 11 to noon is staffed and funded by KCOST, or the Community Action Corporation of South Texas. So to give you a little information about the activities and the schedule of the senior center itself, 2 days a week the senior center offers transportation, which has been scaled back considerably, and you'll see that in the budget numbers that I'll present in just a moment. They have crafts, again, offered 2 days a week. They have a bingo event that's scheduled 1 day a week, and the total activity hours are 56 per month, with total operating hours of 124 per month. The budget of the senior center has, skipped over one, the attendance. Over the last 3 years, the attendance of the senior center has steadily declined, and last year was the least amount of participants. The budget has steadily increased, with the exception of this year. There was a cutback as a line item of the senior center was cut back to $35,000. Now, those monies were not completely removed. They're still available in the Community Enrichment Division, but they are not specifically line itemed for the senior center operation. As of March 30, the end of March, our numbers were compiled. We were at 97% of the senior center's $35,000 annual budget. So we are on track at the senior center to be close to where we were before in previous years. The cost of upkeep is rising with it is mimicking inflation costs, as one could imagine. The cost of van services, however, has gone down significantly with the reduction of the van service offerings. That's the next slide. There we go. That cost of van service has gone down significantly. Now, what we wanted to do was compare this particular senior center with other senior centers in the Coastal Bend region that were of similar size and geographic location to that of Aransas Pass. And we looked at several other cities, and we found that their offerings on time, as well as the services and programs that they offer, are all very similar. The number of clients served was also very similar, even in those cases such as Rockport, who has a much more resources devoted to their senior center with 3 full-time employees. Their participants were roughly the same number of participants that are at the Aransas Senior Center. We also surveyed the clients of the senior center to determine a few things, and these are just 3 of the many findings that we had in the surveys. We surveyed 38 participants agreed to participate in the survey. The mean age, or the average age for the participants, was 75 years of age. 61% are either satisfied or very satisfied about the services provided by the senior center. And the most requested service was some type of health and wellness program, some type of fitness. Now, I'm sure many of you are aware, and we compared some of the offerings at the library, that the Silver Sneakers program is at the library, but some of the participants in the senior center don't participate in that program at the library. So we came up with several recommendations, and what we were looking at would be as many recommendations as we could come up with that are low cost or potentially no cost. And the first was to develop a mission statement. There's really very little in documentation with respect to the operation of the senior center. And I'll hit that again. Increase the budget to the previous numbers. I think, as I had earlier illustrated, you're probably exceeding the budget today, of the line item budget for that particular senior center. Consider partnerships with K-Cost, expanding the partnership with K-Cost and REAL, which is the Rural Economic Assistance League, that they are providing transportation services to other senior centers throughout the community, and we felt that there might be some duplication in services with, and maybe a partnership with REAL could relieve some of that duplication and some of the financial burden on the operation of the senior center. The record keeping is antiquated, so we would recommend that some type of automation or computer system be installed for the employee that works there. An increase in community outreach. It was in the 90th percentile of surveyed participants had stated that the only way they knew anything about the senior center was from a friend or a family member. And that's how they found out about the senior center. So that may help. Utilize the senior center for additional, during the evening or even on the weekend hours, for different events, potentially rent it out. Now, I understand that that was done at one time and then stopped. However, it could be an additional revenue stream if the cost could overwhelm or be greater than the amount of staff that it would take to clean up and security and those kinds of things. But it would be something to consider. Update the current contract between the Housing Authority and the City of Aransas Pass. That contract was perfected on November 5th of 1973 and hasn't been touched since. It's very, very vague. And it leaves a lot of room for there to be a miscommunication about what responsibilities are for the Housing Authority and what responsibilities are that of the City of Aransas Pass. We have a few more. The next one would be implement some type of fitness or exercise program, and that was the most requested activity by the clients that were surveyed. Immunization or some type of shots program for participants. Those are that can often be done in conjunction with Walmart or CVS or Walgreens for low cost or no cost flu shots or other immunizations. Possible group trips that would be of no cost to the city, but an organized type group trip that would bring potentially more participants to the senior center. And then finally was there's an accreditation program for senior centers conducted by the National Council on Aging. There are only 5 cities in the state of Texas that are currently accredited by the NCOA, but those 5 cities we've identified in our full report, and we would suggest that possibly to outreach to them to find policies and best practices for operation of a senior center in a cost-effective, efficient environment that could bolster your satisfaction rate amongst your participants. And in closing, thank you very much, Mayor and council members, Ms. Carrillo. I thank you all for your kind indulgence, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's it. I think that's some good recommendations for,
I think 7 of the 11 are what we consider low-hanging fruit and very, very doable.
This is going to bring us to item 5A, Crime Control and Prevention District Board of and Commission appointments. Looks like we have terms expiring for the following members: Terry Stansberry, Earl Buckmaster, Carol Salinas, and Mr. Jay Attaway. The following members are seeking reappointment, which is Mr. Terry Stansberry, Carol Salinas. So I guess Mr. Buckmaster's not, and Jay isn't also. And I guess we have Mr. David Harris that submitted an application for appointment to replace Jay, and we will go out for anybody
One more.
else.
There's still one vacancy that needs to be filled.
well, I make a motion that we reappoint Terry Stansberry and Carol Salinas to the board and appoint Mr. David Harris to replace Jay Attaway.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll let Mr. Harris know, correct? All of them. We could write Mr. Attaway a thank you letter too for his time. This is going to bring us to item 6, our citizen comments. Please state your full name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to state whatever you would like to discuss at this moment. The time is 7:27. The floor is now open.
Mayor, council members, my name is Stephen Warren, 617 North Houston. I've been talking with the city manager. I didn't know if you guys were aware of this last month, water bills have skyrocketed. Mine went up over the last 4 years. My largest water bill was $170. This last month it went to $266. And I just wanted to let y'all know that there is a problem. We're talking it over with Sylvia right now, trying to figure out what's going on. But I've heard that there's a bunch of them throughout the city. So just so you guys are up to date and know what's going on.
Thank you, Mr.
Be
Moore.
prepared for what
Yes,
might
sir.
happen. Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir.
My name is Dennis Levon. I live at 307 South Atlantic in Aransas Pass. My question is if the city knew the storm was coming, why is it that the storm pumps weren't turned on until after the water had risen up to my back porch? You said that the lady who was speaking said the pumps were turned on at 4 o'clock?
Staff has been operating since 4 a.m.
4 a.m. they
Yes, sir.
started? Okay.
Have we been?
The pumps are on automatic floats. The pumps have been pumping since well before then.
Even the one you rented at noon, the 10-inch pump?
I know we just placed some in here
We
when I came
we
to
placed
City
an
Hall.
additional 10-inch and an
Extra one.
additional 6-inch, in addition to the 24 and all of the other pumps that are running throughout the city.
This has never happened in the 27 years I've lived down there, okay? It's never happened. And I just find it hard to believe as we progress in this town, things get worse.
Well, like you said, sir, in 27 years, there has been a decay of infrastructure and stuff. And not making excuses, but just stating facts. When you have infrastructure that has been neglected over years, sooner or later, as citizens, we're going to have to pay for it. And that's what we're dealing with right now with the outcome, with the streets collapsing, the lines being plugged, ditches that need to be cleaned out, everything that's got going on didn't just happen overnight or within the last 3 years either.
You know, there are bubbles coming up on Wilson Street going into the harbor, okay? And there's no manhole there. So we're gonna have roads collapse there too.
Yes, sir.
Um,
I got a sinkhole in my yard right now.
Well,
I
I
mean,
probably
we all
have
do.
dozens of them. I can't
I mean-
locate them because there's still 3 foot of
Yes, sir.
water. None of the water has gone down. I don't know how long they've been pumping, since 5 this morning or after breakfast or whatever. Nothing has gone down. And it's very irritating, to know, this is all I got.
Right,
okay?
yes, sir. I know exactly where you live. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, where am I gonna go here for assistance, FEMA assistance, what have you? I didn't get the whole thing the lady said.
The Red Cross is setting up at the Civic Center right now.
Really?
And just so Mr. Lemon and the rest of the residents know, we don't have an ounce of assistance from San Patricio County, the state of Texas, Nueces County, Aransas County. Everything that is happening today for the assistance of the residents is because the city of Aransas Pass has taken the initiative to open those shelters.
So FEMA's not gonna step in?
No, sir.
FEMA's not gonna help?
No, sir.
Nobody is?
No, sir.
Why will not? FEMA-
There has not been a disaster declaration made in this county as of yet because the damage is so isolated. We're on our own.
Do you have an idea when?
They're open right now. We have canceled the torch awards for tomorrow and any other event at the Civic Center in order to give our residents a place to stay. Food, shelter, and water.
Okay, but you don't have an idea when FEMA will step in and?
They will not, sir, unless there's a disaster declaration made by the governor's office, and at this point, that is not anywhere on the horizon.
Is there anybody else?
I just feel off topic tonight. My name is Debbie Ellsworth. I live at 1618 West Nelson, and I own the building at 361 South Commercial. And tonight I come before the council representing Destination Downtown Aransas Pass. I wanted to tell you some of the things that we've been doing quickly. April the 23rd, we had a cleanup day, and we had 23 people downtown on a 4-block area. We got 10 bags of trash and 270 gallons of dirt, rocks, and debris. I'm way too old for that, y'all. But we did it. Sylvia came down also. I'm real proud of this group of folks. They're real committed to helping improve the downtown area and clean it up. We're looking at benches, new benches for downtown, and we've had NativeDave.com, a resident of our community that is going to rework our flower beds, our planters, and you should be able to see something there soon coming forth. We wanted to just share with you everything that we've been doing because we're proud of our work and we want you to always be appraised of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie.
We will be doing benches. There is the planters are being redone by Native Dave's. I don't know if you saw all of the pressure washing and cleaning that happened in the downtown area. The bases to the light posts will also be repainted the peachy color they've selected. And we're working on a program to try to get some grants or some other type of assistance for the facades of those buildings, working through TxDOT and working through the State Economic Development Agency and the State Downtown Association. Because Security Service Federal Credit Union, for example, is not looking to replace their awning. So we've got this metal structure there. The beautiful copper awning that was at the H&R Block location has been removed. So we're trying to bring some of those touches back to make the area walkable, safe, lit, and clean. We are also seeking mobile vendors for the first Saturday events that the downtown merchants have put together.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Natalia Lamas. I live at 123 North McCampbell. I'm here in reference to the events that happened last night with the water. Last month, I provided the council with copies of an issue that had been arising between Mr. Saldana and our company. We are not allowed to park our trucks on our next door lot because they're considered to be promoting commercial business. The events of last night left us stranded. We were not able to assist the police in picking up vehicles. we were called and we had to cancel because we had no access to our trucks. We were able to access one after about 3 hours of waiting, and the other one, we're not able to access it at this time. It's still in water. We don't know the damage on that one, the extent of it, if it's gonna be minimal or, we have to replace the vehicle itself. The issue with Mr. Saldana is that he claims that the vehicles are not our usual customary uses. I fail to see where he's correct. We use the vehicles to go back and forth to work. That is it. We don't travel on them. We don't go pleasure trips or anything on there for work. And according to the ordinance, it actually stipulates that if it's customary to the primary use, and the primary use is to go back and forth to work, you should be able to park your vehicle within 300 yards of your residence. So at this time, I would like the council to shed some light on that issue. And that's all I have.
Natalia, what sizes are the vehicles we're talking about?
It's just a record truck.
Just like a Class B, bobtail, or
How big is your record truck, Victor?
30 foot?
It's not an 18-wheeler.
Right.
It's a
Flatbeds.
flatbed.
And how many of those do you have?
Two.
Two that both people in the residence for work?
We've had them there for years. And then all of a sudden, we can't park them anymore.
You want to elaborate on that, sir?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you that complaints is usually what drives a zoning case investigation. And reasonable and customary to the primary use is what happens in a residential neighborhood. I think the issue becomes more where the trucks are parked, if they're blocking traffic, et cetera. I don't know the extent of the complaints, but we don't
Vacant
just
lot
receive any one complaint. Yes, ma'am, but the complaints are from the residential neighbors in a residential neighborhood. So that's where this stemmed from, and what she provided the council and we provided the council is what is reasonable and customary in a residential zone. If it was one person living and it was one truck parked kind of thing, that's one thing. It's 2 trucks, 3 trucks, however many trucks end up being parked in a residential zone.
Well, with all due respect,
Your name and address, sir?
my name is Victor Lana, same address. With all due respect, that's not what the actual ordinance says. It doesn't say customary to the actual neighborhood. It says customary to the residents living in it.
It says customary to the primary use. The primary use is a residential zone.
Yes, for the people who live there, not for the surrounding neighbors.
It is in the zone that is declared in the area, not the residents, you, the single residence. It is the residential zone.
That's not what it states in the actual ordinance. I mean, you can keep saying that all you want, but that's not how it's stated.
Do we have a copy of this
So we don't
ordinance?
actually see.
Yes,
it.
you've received a copy of their letter, and you've received a copy of the rebuttal statement provided by staff. You received that about a month ago.
So, you have the property, it's empty lot next door, you have your house next to it. There's no way they could replat, make one big garage and put them inside?
Well, the issue becomes what is customary and what takes off from a residential zone. In the normal residential zone, you're not going to have lights, noise, and things deploying at a certain period of time. The same reason home occupations are limited because of traffic and deliveries and things like that. It is what is normal and customary to residential widths of streets, traffic, the normal course of business in a residential zone.
I'm trying to think.
Their option is to apply to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a change of zoning. Spot zoning is not typically allowed and is usually considered illegal by the state. So I don't know what classification of zone they would need in order to be able to operate that business out of that residential zone. Towing businesses are not typically in residential zones.
Well, we're not operating a towing business out of that house. We're just parking our vehicles there so we can go to work when we need to go to work, period.
The trucks are
we're not-
deployed from the house to the location wherever you go to tow.
So, I mean, that's what going to work is. Would you agree with that? So that's the customary use. That's the same logic of saying, oh, you can't have a welding rig, which by your definition that you have kept on sending us to us, fits that same illegal activity that we're causing. With that logic, they can't park on their property either. You see
I don't know if
you
the
see where
I don't know if
flaws-
the zoning or the welding rig takes off with lights or whatever else is customary to towing.
They're the same type of motor in them. That's the, I mean, we don't turn on the lights until we're near the accident.
Well, the issue is it's not a council action. It is a planning and zoning council. It is a planning and zoning action and recommendation that will then come to the council for recommendation. Their option is to apply to the planning and zoning commission.
Well, the
Mhm.
problem is, it's not a planning and zoning issue at all, seeing as that we don't need to be rezoned. We are abiding by the ordinance as it's stated, and we're not allowed to park our vehicles there. That's the problem.
It is up to the planning and zoning commission for interpretation as well. If you disagree with staff's interpretation, it has to go through the normal process.
I mean, it's
Victor, I'm
ridiculous.
wondering if you could get, if it's possible for you to get signatures of all of your neighbors accepting of, having them park there. I mean, I don't know. I pretty much agree
See
with
if they have
everything that you're
initials on
saying.
Yeah,
I agree. When you use the label, not a welding rig, I was gonna say a drilling rig, a welding rig. To me, welding trucks have the backup signals, they have all the lights. I don't know.
I got the alarm on my truck.
You got an alarm on your truck. My
Yeah.
son has an alarm on his truck.
Mayor, let me suggest to you, this is under citizens' comments, not on for action tonight, and certainly not for debate at this point. I would suggest that he follow the suggestion of the city manager and apply with the planning and zoning. Go from there.
And another issue we're having is, we also had some limousines there, and they also said we couldn't park those. What's your rationale for that?
Again, it's what's reasonable and customary in a residential zone.
It's just a regular car. It's a Cadillac. I mean, what's so unusual about a Cadillac? It's like saying we can't park a high-end vehicle like a Bugatti or a Lamborghini on our property just because it's not customary to everybody else.
That's not what reasonable and customary means, but I'll let you debate that with the planning and zoning
Well,
commission.
Tell me what's so different about a limousine besides the fact it has an extra door.
Victor, we're past our time right now, sir. My suggestion is go to planning and zoning and see what you can come up from there. I would petition maybe just,
Well, I mean, I've been down planning and
Your-
zoning for our property down Railroad Street.
have you talked to your neighbors?
I mean, we haven't had any complaints about it for the past 10, 15 years we had it there. I mean, we just had a police officer come to our property one day and tell us that we need to move it.
Because we have an ordinance in place.
I know, and
Right.
we're abiding by the ordinance, the way it's written. It's just now that we have new people coming in to try to interpret it in the wrong fashion. And I don't want to be coming back here every single time this happens.
Correct, sir.
So I'm not too sure what zoning would do for us. Because we don't need to rezone our property.
Do you have a commercial place for your vehicles now?
Yeah, we have the record yard, but if you look down Railroad Street, it's all flooded. I mean, I went down there and there's like 3 or 4 feet of water down there. And we shouldn't have this kind of problems. That's what I'm trying to
Yes,
get
sir.
at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that has a citizen comment to make?
My name is Carol Salinas. I'm a resident of Aransas Pass, and I'm totally off subject right now. I've missed a couple of council meetings in the last little while. I've watched them on live stream. You guys are better about speaking into your microphones than you were for quite a while. I was able to hear most of the members of the council most of the time. This right here, unless you're someone like the gentleman that had a pamphlet, it's very hard to reach over and speak into the microphone. I could very seldom hear any of the citizens' comments on live stream. And when you miss a meeting and you want to see what's going on, you're trying to hear it, I just would like to draw your attention to that. And you can see I can't reach. But when I get over here, I can tell that I'm in the microphone. But I also have a loud voice, and so people have told me they can usually hear me. But I doubt if the conversation that just preceded me will be recorded legibly on live stream. Thank you.
Carol, what's your address, ma'am?
858 South 11th.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there something we can do for a mic, Sylvia?
We'll have to get a smaller stand and put it actual on the podium itself, mounted on the podium.
Extension or something? Is there anybody else who'd like to make a citizen comment? No, everybody's good? If not, that'll close all citizen comments. This is gonna move to item 7, the consent agenda. All the following items of the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council, will be enacted one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. If the discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda, will be considered separately. We have items 7A, 7B, and 7C. What is the favor of the council for item 7A?
You want to do them all or individually?
It's up to y'all, whatever it would be.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That'll bring us to item 8A, consider an act awarding the bid of 13th Street.
Mayor and Council, as you know, we went out for bid for the drainage repairs that were required on 13th Street. I'm trying to find the agenda item. What was budgeted was about $130,000. The lowest bid we received, the only bid we received, was $182,000. Given today's rain events as well, there's additional work that's going to be needed to be done at 13th Street, and the scope of the repairs is most likely going to change. 13th Street in this particular area had 3 cave-ins in just the immediate area. This $182,000 did not plan to address anything of that sort in terms of failure. It was simply going to change out a few drainage boxes and increase some capacity, including the ditch downstream, by creating a wider inlet. These are going to be bigger issues that we're going to need to address. I would ask the council that you allow the staff to go back to the engineering firm and come back with perhaps a revised design and hopefully a revised cost estimate.
On that revised cost estimate, is that including an entire new drainage system possibly
Yes.
on there? Good.
We had an alternate design when we first began to scope out the project. It's about a $400,000 repair.
Okay.
But, you know, we're at the point that
That's money well spent.
Yeah, the Band-Aid is not, or even just a short term, because our issue is, as you know, we don't have an entire drainage basin study. So the only thing that we're taking into account at 13th Street is the immediate drainage. But there are other surface drains coming from the surrounding area that we need to size those boxes and the inlets probably a lot larger. And we're still going to do it independent of a drainage study. We're just going to kind of have to take that shot. This is also assuming staff can do the road repair. It's still in about $400,000 range.
Do I hear a motion to table item 8A?
I make a motion, we table agenda item 8A.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Item 8B is the Chamber of Commerce to temporarily close the streets during shrimpery. That is the standard request by the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the document. And these are the streets directly around Community Park. So I believe Rosemary's here if you need to address.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rosemary Vega, and I'm with the Aransas Pass Chamber of Commerce. And I am here for the first time to ask for permission to close the streets directly around the shrimpery grounds. That would be Arch, Danforth on both sides around the park, and Highland. And that's in an effort to help the traffic. We are getting larger and larger, and this year expect even larger crowds. And we believe that if we can close those streets off, keep in mind we do have parking passes for the residents, so we won't close the residents off. we will have parking passes for all of them. But if we can do that, we think the traffic will flow better. And also where the buses come in on Arch, I think that's, what is that, Danforth Street? It'll alleviate some of that too. We've actually asked one of the landowners who has some property there if we could close off his property and use it for the emergency services. So they'll have a place for the Halo to come in if they need to. And that will help us because the guy in the front, I can't remember what kind of business it is, but he's been parking cars in that parking lot as well. And so that was backing up our buses. With 3 buses and 80 passengers on each bus, you know, by the time they unload and load, it was backing up all the traffic coming in Johnson Street as well. And I think, Eric, if I'm not mistaken, also TxDOT is going to be watching this closely this year.
Yeah, TxDOT's going to supervise this year and try to come up with a better traffic management plan for
Really?
And we won't close it, you know, the whole weekend, just during the operation hours.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
If it goes through, you'll send plenty of notice to the residents.
Yeah, we'll have signs that say the roads are closed right there, and we're gonna go around knocking on doors, letting people know that that street's closed, but we're gonna give them parking passes so that they can get to their properties.
It's really no different from previous years.
We're just officially doing it.
Hand delivering basically permits so that when they come in, there's no problems. We have had problems prior to them trying to get through and being blocked. So we're fixing that this year with the permit standardized program.
Any questions from council?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Rosemary. Do I hear a motion for approval for item 8B?
I'll make a motion, we approve item 8B.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This will move along to 8C, consider an act on softball complex lease with Roland Peña.
Mayor and Council, as you're aware, you approved the softball lease with Mr. Peña and removed the prorating and the credit for rain delays. Mr. Peña is asking for that to be reconsidered.
He's already had a game prior to this, right?
Correct.
He's had 2 games.
2 games.
Has he signed the contract?
Yes. And he's asking you to amend the contract.
I'll make a motion, we deny amending the contract and leave it as is.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Next item is reconsider and act on the request for proposals for Community Park. This is the concrete that we discussed at the last council meeting.
Are these rebids?
No. The discussion with TML was a rebid was not necessary because we did not state a bid award date.
Okay.
We just advertised a bid opening date.
These were put on the agenda by you or 2
I had the
council members?
request of 2 council members.
Which 2 of those?
That would be myself.
You did both of them?
I requested.
Who's the other?
Requested.
Billy and Philip.
I requested.
Actually, 3 council members.
Okay, good deal. I was wondering if we could start, that way you don't get full credit or blame going to the city manager. Anytime we have an item agenda, we can put the council members that they want, or the mayor has to put it by himself. That way it's transparent, everybody has an idea of what's going on.
I'll get the blame anyway, but okay.
You know what I mean?
I just know that we've been working on this for the longest time, and I think it's time we need to move forward.
Because the bond pass to actually do this was 2014.
Correct.
And I just wonder why
Correct.
we drug our feet till 2016, right before Shabri, to say it's emergency, get it done.
Well, I think there's a number of issues. The bond in 2014 had a lot of work, not just parks. It's just a matter of how things fell in sequence with all of the other road work and my AP that we have going on. It took us a little bit longer than I would have liked to try to receive electrical plans and electrical drawings. We still needed to give AEP the blanket easements as well. So there was a lot of steps that needed to be considered. At the end of this, the only thing we're able to bid out anyway at this point is the concrete portion of the work.
So standard 2014, 2 years, give or take?
That was my discussion with the council on the bond packages, how we would go for bonds every couple of years, probably 3 to 5, to allow us to complete projects. Usually when there's a bond issuance, it's not going to be completed in 1 year. It is probably about a 3-year process before projects from start to finish complete.
There's no way we could use that money to help us out with the situation we're in right now with the water?
Council would,
Drainage in that area?
you would have to, I'd have to talk to bond council, but we allocated specific amounts for park improvements. That's how it was sold to the bond council and the people buying the bonds on the market. We were going to do specific amounts for downtown improvements, parks, and then streets, specifically Highland Johnson Roads, Beasley.
What about the vending and stuff for the Little League Park right now where they have trouble with the...
We are
bottom
seeking
floors and all that?
proposals right now for that particular project. I believe that advertised last week before. We have a proposal out for bids for repairs to the Little League grounds. We've also been in discussion with the Little League themselves as to whether or not they can do the work and then perhaps use it as a fundraiser for them, but we've not had a response from the Little League as of yet, so we went ahead with the proposal.
Is there any way we could look at maybe building a whole new complex with the bathrooms and the vending and all that?
That could be programmed in the bonds for this year. The bonds in 14, we said we were going to build the dog park, skate park.
I thought we were going to build 2 or 3 softball parks.
No, one of the discussions, if you recall, was to demolish the softball field and try to build a basketball pavilion and those kinds of things. And then council voted not to demolish the softball fields, to rehabilitate, and you approved a contract to allow Roland to rehabilitate the softball field complex.
'Cause I know we were talking about moving them to at least to the Little League, correct?
Mm-hmm. At one point, and the council, you had some folks show up and folks from Ingleside that played there and did not want to move the softball, so council proceeded with the contract for Mr. Pena to rehab the adult softball.
Have they changed out the fence and all that out there in the scoreboard?
No, not as of yet, no.
Do we have the money for that?
Yes, we're seeking, well, it's more than just the scoreboard. There's an entire fence area that needs to go in. That's part of where the dog park location is going to be as well.
And we already have the ramps and everything for the skate park. is
The
that
skate
correct?
park has been waiting for about a year, probably 18 months. The pieces are still with Craftsman, the original company. They're waiting for the concrete pad to be installed to come and install all of the pieces.
Okay.
Those have been paid for a while.
So this bid is to cover the dog park, skate park, and the vendor?
Correct. The vendor / bleacher pad.
What would be the favor of council on 8D?
I make a motion, we approve R&A Construction for the proposals of the community park.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay.
He's not the lowest bidder. Lowest bidder is Lee Contracting.
Yeah, but you got 2 things that aren't included, everything
It passed.
inclusive, it's turnkey. It passed.
This will bring us all the way to 14A, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mayor. I declare a public hearing open for the purposes of taking up the application of Tammy Solis for a conditional use permit to operate a bar, lounge, or tavern at 1152 South Commercial, being on lots 32 through 35, Block 7, Frick's First Edition, Ranges Pass. Planning and zoning has previously taken up this matter and have requested your approval, subject to certain conditions that they have attached to their report, which should be a part of your package. Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
I am Tammy Solis.
Okay.
And I am looking to be approved for my conditional use permit to open up a sports bar at 1152 South Commercial.
Okay. Well, the information I have says you're here on behalf of Karen Rowe.
She is the owner of the property, and I am the tenant that's renting the property.
Okay,
from
you're
her
renting. Okay, all right.
Since October.
Are you aware of the conditions at the planning and zoning?
Yes, I was at the planning and zoning meeting.
Do you have any problem with any of those?
No problems at all.
Okay.
I'd like the council to understand the planning and zoning granted only a 1-year conditional permit. Ms. Solis is required to meet screening, landscaping, noise, et cetera. Her hours of operation are extended, which brings up some concern from the police chief, and I'll let him address that. The planning and zoning did take those things into consideration. I think that's why they only granted a 1 year at a time permit.
Yeah, council, we did query that location from previous owners, not her. And we've had a lot of problems, mostly noise violations from surrounding residents. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not opposed to trying out a new management or a new manager for the location, but I will tell you that the residents around that area are very, very picky when it comes to noise.
I kind of know some of them, yes.
That may be advantageous.
Members of the council have any questions?
When will you be open?
That we're still working on because we have a lot of work to do to the premises. It needs some
Right.
paint. It needs a face job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Anything else from the council?
No, sir.
If not, then I declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
This brings us to item 8B. Consider an act on ordinance approving conditional use permit for Tammy Solis to operate a bar, lounge, tavern at 1152 South Commercial, Rents Pass, Texas, lots 32 through 35 on Block 7, Bricks First Edition on Rents Pass, Texas. What is the favor of the council on item 14B?
I make a motion, we approve item 14B
With the conditions.
with the conditions.
Second the motion?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose. Just the residents
Aye.
have approached me about having issues with having a bar there.
This is gonna bring us to item 14C. It's a public, Alan Lawrence?
Yes, sir. Mayor, this is a public hearing on the application for a replat by Glenn and Jane Dubose for the property described as .321 acres of land, being lots 9 and 10, block 748. Mr. and Ms. Dubose present? Yes, sir. You want to come forward?
Hi, I'm Louis Dubois, Glenn.
I'm sorry.
And I live at 562 South 12th in Aransas. And Jane and I moved here a couple of years ago. We bought the property across the street from Madon.
Yes, sir.
Because we wanted to be by the neighbor, of course. I mean, by the mayor, of course. Anyway, all we want to do is build a garage. And the property we have is, we own 4 lots, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Lots 9 and 10 are completely fenced in and have been for decades, from what I understand. And there was kind of a carport there before when we moved in, and I tore it down. It was a hazard. And I talked to the City Planning and Zoning Commission about building a garage. They said, that's fine, but you can't build a garage on lot 10 by itself because it doesn't have city services. You have to replat your property in order to build your garage. So that's what we're trying to do.
And this has been approved by the planning and zoning. So-
Yes, we were
Yes,
there
Yes,
last
sir.
week.
And as a neighbor, I just want to state that they have put a lot of money into their structure, and they've done tons of improvement to the neighborhood.
Thank
For
you.
what they put in.
Thank you.
Time and effort to the lot, but they also cleared also.
Want to get it up to Ruby standards.
Yeah, Ruby is a beautiful one. It's pretty.
Any other questions or comments? If not, public hearing is closed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
This brings us to item
D.
15D?
Yep.
14D. Consider not the application for replat for Glenn and Jane Dubois for the property described at .321 acres, land being lots 9 and 10, block 748, Grants Pass Town Site, San Patricia County, Texas. What is the favor of the council, on item 14D?
I'll make a motion that we apply the application for a replat.
Second the motion?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, sir. Next item is a public hearing on a replat. I think I can get this last name better, for Lisa Coy for property described as .562 acres of land, being lot 21R, block 607. Ms. Coy here. No? Does anyone else want to address this?
It is a similar situation, combining lots in order to build. You can't have a accessory structure without a primary.
Were there any objections to it from anyone?
No.
Council have any questions?
No, sir.
I would recommend, even though she's not here, if it's the same situation, it shouldn't be a problem. So I'll declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Let's move to items 14F, consider now the application replat for Lisa Coy for the property described as .562 acre of land, lot 21R, block 607, Rand's Pass Townsite of San Patricio County, Texas. What is the favor of the council on 14F?
I make a motion, we approve item 14F.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, next item is a public hearing regarding amendment to the zoning ordinance, Part 4, Section 16, concerning the Board of Adjustments by amending the board's jurisdiction to allow for a spatial exception for sign location and height, and to authorize the Director of Development Services a 10% administrative adjustment. Miguel, you want to address this?
Mayor, Council, Miguel Saldana, the proposed amendment that is before you is to allow or give the authority to the Board of Adjustment to do some special exception for signs, freestanding signs, to allow them to go taller or change the location as would be allowed by the ordinance. What brought this on was McDonald's was trying to build a little taller sign that would be allowed, taller than 35 feet, and they submitted an application for a variance, and after discussing it with our attorney, the board did not have the authority, so I put this ordinance together. The other part of this ordinance is to grant the Director of Development Services a 10% administrative adjustment that would allow the director, in cases where somebody builds 12 inches into a required setback, they wouldn't have to go through the Board of Adjustment, through all that bureaucracy to be able to get a variance for the 6 to 12 inches. So that 10% would allow the director to make that call. Any questions?
How would, say you come up with it and you do so much and then later you leave, and how would we keep track of it? That's what I want to know.
There would be a record. It would be a written record that the administrative adjustment was granted, and the basis for granting. It wouldn't just be, yeah, you're a nice guy, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
And the next guy, I don't like you, I'm not gonna give it to you. So, no, it has to be fair. And it was questioned as to why only 10%, but, you know, don't want to give the director too much authority, so 10% is usually the going rate across the country, so legal rules decided to stay with that.
This would have helped the restaurant San Juan if they required 40 spaces and were short 4. Then this would have allowed Miguel to approve it during the permitting process as opposed to taking him through Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
There'll be a way of letting the council know when these things come up, just so we don't get blindsided. Hey, why you did this and not? You know what?
Sure.
Just give us a heads up.
I can give it to the city manager as one of the updates.
All right, I appreciate it, sir.
All right, thanks, Miguel. Any questions or comments?
No, sir.
If not, the public hearing is closed.
Let's get us to 14H, consider an act on amended ordinance number 1308, zoning ordinance by amended part 4, section 16, Board of Adjustment by amended the board's jurisdiction to allow for a special exception for sign location and height, and to authorize the Director of Development Services a 10% administrative adjustment, providing for repeater clause and effective date. Do I hear a motion for approval for item 14H?
I make a motion, we approve item 14H.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Miguel. This is Sylvia, there you go.
Okay, item 15A, we're going to start with the plating and zoning, plating and subdivision ordinance. If council recalls, we did some updates a few years ago. Carrie, you weren't on the council. A few years ago, we defined what is a reasonable distance. If people are reasonably away from water sewer, what's that distance that they're required to tie in? When we did our last update, that reasonable distance wasn't incorporated. So we've had some folks come in recently, and we need to come back and address this issue. So I'm just letting the council know that at the next Planning Commission agenda, we're going to bring this up as an item, and then you will see it in the July timeframe to redefine those, what those distances are. I will tell you from the annexation conference I just came from, this is a very important item that we need to have addressed. All of our service plan meets this, and we need to make sure things stay in line so that none of our annexations are a question. The other item that's not listed here is the hours of operation down at Harbor Point Park. I had a couple of issues come up over the weekend on social media, and then I had a council member reach out on the hours of operation. What the standard procedure has been from not just Chuck, but the prior harbor master as well. If people were fishing past the curfew hours, he left them alone. If you were down there not fishing, kind of just hanging out, he asked you to leave the park because of, you know, all of the undesirable things that happen down at the park. It gets later, people are out later, people are also walking, biking, hiking the entire portion of the harbor. So we really need to revisit the hours of operation down at Community Park, at Harbor Point Park. Add to that the alcohol that we allowed to be consumed at that particular point, and it's an item of safety. So we're going to bring an ordinance proposal or an hours of operation or some kind of code of conduct down to the council at the next council agenda.
I went down there to go see it. I haven't seen a sign with any kind of operating hours at all.
I think they ran over it. There's a couple of signs that have been run over and not replaced. But we did have a curfew sign.
At any of the entrances, anything, so it's kind of hard to, say that, this is the rule when it's not there. I did go to Ransom Park, which is by the navigation, and they do have all the rules and stuff at the entrances like it should be, so I can understand the way they handle their business over there. And then as far as the park myself, which I know a lot of people have normal hours, I don't think anybody up here does, but I know a lot of people do go to the harbor just to meditate sometimes, to think about what has gone, what has happened. It's a place where a lot of people, their life has been there. One gentleman, which I will talk about, his wife passed away from cancer, and he goes there with his child just to try to relive. He's a single dad raising 2 kids on his own, and that's where he started working at Coastal Freezing. A lot of people don't know this stuff. I do. Just one of the privileges of being born and raised here. A lot of people, a lot of backgrounds. Special privileges? No. But just to be fair across the board, to have an understanding, safety, welfare, it's a big deal. It's very important. The thing is, too, just because you got a fishing pole doesn't mean you're a good guy either. You could damage a commode or whatever also. So that's just my reflection right now, just to give you a heads up. I go to Harbor at different hours. I know Bill used to go different hours all the time too. And we have 3 ladies, Miss Polly and a couple other ladies that walk it day, night. I've seen them on the heavy equipment. They never got run off either. But just something to think about. Let's see. That's all you got, Sylvia? As far as
That's it, other than continuation of our flood discussion that, staff is going to continue to monitor the situation and work. you know, it's difficult, I know, to tell the residents to be patient, but, you know, we didn't get here overnight, and we're not gonna dig out overnight. We're trying to do what we can with what we have without any rates being raised, without any taxes being raised, and just absorbing it in our normal operating, or when we can be efficient and refinance and refund some things with those savings. That's what we've done for the last 3 years and the next foreseeable 2 years. You know, at the very next bond, I'm just preparing the council, given that today's freeboard in the sewer treatment plant was less than a foot. Our next item is going to be the sewer treatment plant, and I will prepare the council that a clarifier, a new clarifier, additional storage space is about $20 million.
I was gonna ask, do we have room for growth?
I'm sorry, $2 million. A new sewer treatment plant is about 20 to 40.
Do we have room so we can add on to that plant?
There will be some room made, yeah. There isn't, obviously that's not the ideal location for a sewer treatment plant that close to the bay. That is not an ideal location. It's kind of the hand we were dealt at this particular point.
And of course, we still have infrastructure.
The normal day today, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Sylvia. Is there any questions from council for the city manager? Okay. And that's gonna move us along to item 17, executive session. The city council will recess to executive session to discuss the following items pursuant to chapter 551 of our Texas Government Code. Which item A, section 551.071 is consultation with the city attorney over La Costa development. Item 17B, 551.072 is deliberation over real property, environmental findings. Item 17C, section 551.074 is deliberation regarding personnel with the city secretary. And item 17D, section 551.074 is deliberation regarding personnel at the municipal court. The time is now 8:18. We're going to executive session. Thank y'all that came out. If you're not here when we come back, I hope you have a good day, a good evening.